Happy Easter, everybody. My name is Tristina Dietz Elms. I am an artist in Florida. I'm on near Tampa. And today I am pleased to bring you a workshop about working with um, stencils and modeling paste and other fun ways to use modeling paste. Let me see, I should have right here. My modeling paste pieces. One, two, yes, as well as some artwork that we finished up from last week. So let me show you what we're going to be, something similar to this that we're going to be doing today. These are stencils, and there's some extra texture in there, and that was created with modeling paste. Also, here's another one. If you saw the invite to this show, then you will have seen my dragonfly here. And there again is that flower one. Now, these stencils in particular, I don't know where they are. They're somewhere in my packing from when I moved, but I have other fun stencils to show you today. So this again, modeling paste, and then I highlighted it, and the modeling paste is going to dry white, so it gives you a nice base to go back in and put your inky paints on. We're going to be working with paints that are a little more drippy. So if you see here, you see the drips along here. We're going to work with paint that's a little bit more fluid for this process in order to get it to flow over top of the texture that's created with the modeling paste. But you can also just do texture for texture's sake. This is a little piece that actually someone made when I was at a show and I was demonstrating the modeling paste, and then they created this palm tree out of the modeling paste in a panel. And I put a little bit of gold paint on it to show her how you could highlight the texture with metallics, but I didn't have the heart to paint the palm part of it yet. So I'll get to that, but it's a good thing to show you, isn't it? For that. And then I wanted to show you a little bit for last week. Hold on one second there. Last week was a workshop on watercolor and then doodling on top of the watercolor in order to highlight the watercolor and create fun designs. So one of the things that we did was we did some leaf shapes. So they're the leaf shapes. And I generally don't finish my artwork during the class. I go back in and I work and finish the artworks after class and then put them up for sale. So if you are on, hello, welcome in. If you are on Whatnot, when you go to the shop, the first couple of items that are in there, you'll see, for instance, this piece that was finished um, from my workshop. Let me see if I can get my live up on YouTube there. You'll be able to see this piece completed, and you'll also see what it looks like if it were put in a mat. So when I offer my pieces, generally, not always, but generally I offer them in a mat. So this piece would look similar or look like this in the white mat, and it would look like this in the black mat. I love the way the black mat highlights the lines there, right? On pieces like that. So if you are on Whatnot and you go to the little house at the bottom of the screen, when you go to the Buy Now section, you're going to see these artworks that we were working on together last week, and now they are available. They're completed. All the lines are put in there with the markers I was showing you how to do, and now they're available for sale in my store, along with a whole bunch of other cool artwork, including these pieces that are the sample for today. Those are also in there. This one is called Take That Big Step. Take That Big Step, because there are all these affirmations that are put on there. You can see the details of these if you take a look in the Whatnot Buy Now. And then this one is called Loved Ones, because there's a little kitty cat stamp right here. So if anybody has a cat that they love, there's a really cool vintage stamp here with a kitty cat on it, and that is also available now in the buy it now on Whatnot. All right, let me move these out of the way. Another thing that we were doing last week and was completed was a big sheet with circles on it of watercolor, and then we highlighted those again with the doodles with the markers. And after I finished with the whole sheet, I made it into artist cards. So these are mini works of art. And as you can see there, you see the doodles in the background. So first I took the doodles as they were, I cut the shapes out. I chose a postage stamp to go with it, a vintage stamp, and then I also drew in extra, like there's some gold showing there. And so these are new. Hello, hello, Boho Soul Emporium. Welcome, welcome. And so these are new and will be offered during the auction part of the show. There's an entire collection of new pieces created based on what it was that we did last week. If you weren't able to be here for last week's workshop and you would like to go back and watch it on Whatnot, you can go to my past shows. It stays out there, I think, 90 days. And so you can pick up a past show that way. And I also simulcast to YouTube. So some people are over on my YouTube that I'm watching here. And welcome to my YouTube peeps. So after the show is over, that is the workshop and then the auctions, I go back in and on YouTube and I take out the auction part of the show and it just leaves the workshop part of the show. So you're free to go there anytime and watch the actual workshop, just the workshop portion that's under the live tab on my YouTube channel. You can go back in and watch that anytime. It'll be out there for you. Okay, I go in and I cut out little things like the very beginning and stuff like that. If I make a mistake, but things that don't have to do specifically with the workshop, I will cut out. But there are, I'm going to show you, I made, I think, 21 artist cards this week. It was crazy. I just kept making them and making them and making them. So these are all new artist cards that are going to be auctioned during the auction portion of the show. Excuse me, is going to be about using the modeling paste and creating texture. So what is modeling paste? Modeling paste is an acrylic medium. So it is an acrylic base and it dries white. There are some acrylic mediums that dry clear. So if it says gel medium on it, it's going to dry clear. Notice they both look white in the tube, but this dries transparent and this dries white. So it is important to know when you're going and you're buying your acrylic mediums for painting, kind of what the after effect is that you're going to get. But for the most part, modeling pastes are going to dry white. Now you can color your modeling paste, and we're going to do that in just a little bit, which is to add some acrylic paint or acrylic inks in with the modeling paste, and then you can make the modeling paste have a color to it. And that's also true of gel mediums as well. So this one will dry transparent unless you put an opaque paint color in there. Some paints are opaque. You see there where it says opaque? So this particular cadmium red color is opaque. And what that means is if I add it to this transparent, it's going to dry opaque because the paint is opaque. But if I take this opaque red and I add it to this modeling paste that we're going to be doing, what's going to happen is the whiteness of the modeling paste is going to change the color of what's in the tube. A gel medium won't change the color. This is the one that dries clear. And so you put the opaque in there and it's going to dry with this color. But when you're working with modeling pastes, the modeling paste, because it dries white, is actually going to modify the color here of this, this tube And so you're going to get more of a pink, right? Your red is going to turn kind of pinky because you're adding it to white, depending on how much of the red you put in. You may put a lot of red and only a little bit of modeling paste to give it a little bit of extra body. I don't know, right? We're also going to be using stencils. So I like to use modeling paste through a stencil. And this happens to be a stencil I just got, and it is a Balzer Designs. So Julie Fay Fan Balzer, this is from her line. And you can see her on the back here. And I purchased these from a company called Spellbinders because I wanted to get some special new brushes, and I ordered those. And how can you resist new stencils, right? I have a whole drawer full of stencils, but this is a fun spring inspired stencil that I thought would be good for us to use today. And then this is another stencil and there are a lot of people on Whatnot. If you're on YouTube, just know that Whatnot is an auction platform as well as a store. So I have my store on Whatnot, which is under the shop tab, and I also do auctions on Whatnot. So you can find people in the craft category on Whatnot who sell stencils. So you want to look out for that because I get lots of great deals on Whatnot. If you are on YouTube and you'd like to join us over on Whatnot, at the top of the screen, there is a QR code that you can scan and then pop over to Whatnot. Or you can go into the description of the video and there's a link that you can click, and that will bring you over to this Whatnot show. And if you're new to Whatnot, Whatnot will give you a $15 credit to spend on the Whatnot platform. So, welcome. Come on over if you're on YouTube right now. But yes, so this is another stencil I'm going to show you how I use. Another thing we're going to use is a butcher tray. So this is called a butcher tray. It is metal. They also come in silicone and plastic. This is your traditional butcher tray, and a lot of people use this when they're painting. They'll put their acrylic paints in. First, they'll put like a damp sponge, one of those flat sponges from a company called Masterson that helps to keep your paints moist. And then they'll put their acrylic paints on here and use it as their acrylic paint palette. Some people use it as an oil paint palette. Some people use it to mix their watercolor paints in. So on my website, there is a place under paintbrushes and tools where you can just do one click and you can see the different butcher trays that are out there. And what am I using the butcher trays for? I'm using the butcher tray to put a little bit of water in. And then when I'm using the modeling paste with my stencils, I'm going to drop my stencil into this butcher tray with a little bit of water in it to help prevent the modeling paste or the paints from getting hard on the stencil. So that's what I use my butcher tray for when I'm doing this kind of work. Now let me show you where my website is. Hold on. And so this is my website right here. It's www.dietzart.com. When you click or you go there, it's going to change to dietzart.gallery. That's still me. That's my artist website. And so on my website, if you go to the menu item that says supply links, I don't sell the paint during my shows. I give you an art lesson and I sell my art and art supplies in terms of papers that I've made and ephemera. But if you are looking for some of the paints that I'm actually painting with and also some of the mediums like this um, modeling paste, then you can go to the supply links on my website and you'll be able to find the reference of all of the supplies that we're using in there, including the butcher trays. So let me set the butcher tray aside. Then we're going to use some paper. Um, if you've watched my shows before, you know that my favorite paper to work on is this Canson XL watercolor paper, 140 pounds, which means that it's a nice thick paper to work on. And It's good to have the thick paper because it buckles less. It doesn't not buckle, but it buckles less, okay, if you have a heavier paper. You can absolutely do this process of what I'm going to show you on your lighter papers. Like I have very inexpensive, I think it's a 95 pound watercolor paper that's super cheap. So if I am literally just playing to learn a new product, then I'll use that really cheap watercolor paper. But the trick is if you put gesso is a primer. So if you, an acrylic primer, so if you put gesso on the paper first, it toughens up the paper, makes it a little thicker, and then you can do all these processes right on top of it, and it acts more like a 140 pound watercolor paper. So don't hesitate, if you're in a craft section somewhere to, even in the grocery store, to buy the cheaper watercolor paper. Just cover it if you're doing these mixed media techniques with acrylics. Just cover it with a layer of that gesso primer, and you are good to go. And gesso comes in multiple colors. If you didn't know, most of the time you see gesso in white. However, you can also find gesso in black, and the company Holbein has gesso in a whole range of colors. And a gesso just primes your surface. Even with a canvas, I put another coat of gesso on top of it to prepare it to get ready to do acrylic painting. Yes, it's supposed to already have primer on it, but the thing is, what I find is when you get a surface that says that it's already primed like that, oftentimes it's a very thirsty surface. Meaning, if you're putting your acrylic paint on it, um, the surface is very, the paint sometimes will skip over top of the surface because it's soaking in. If you really want to seal it up nicely for your first layers, go ahead and put some gesso on it, even though it's already gesso primed. The only exception to that is when you buy a panel and the panel is already, and a panel like this is an MDF panel, meaning that it's a type of composite panel, but you can also buy wood panels. And in general, those wood panels, if it already has a coat of gesso on it, they're usually pretty good to go. Like I generally don't re gesso those. I just work right on top of them because when they have to do it flat like that, then it gives you a nice surface when it dries. The trick is that when they're doing that on canvas, when they're pre-spraying and pre-priming canvas, the canvas has some texture to it, right? And so that's what causes that thirstiness on a canvas. That would be like a canvas board if you had a canvas board, or a stretched canvas. I always gesso those again before I go in and start painting. That way, I get the result that I'm expecting even in the first layer. But if you're a crazy mixed media artist and you like to do tons of layers, like I usually do, then you do not have to pre-prime. Okay. The other thing is mixed media paper. So I showed you the Canson watercolor paper, which works great. Now this is a Canson, also the XL series, but notice it says fluid mixed media paper. So the fluid mixed media paper is actually thicker. It says 154 pounds. So, oh, look at that. Handcraft Love. Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you for rating. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so I am discussing the supplies that we're going to be using for the workshop that I'm doing today, and that is on um, doing texture with modeling paste in your artwork. And I'm going to teach several different ways of getting texture with the modeling paste. And then later, we're going to do a giveaway after the workshop of um, a greeting card, an envelope that's made from um, this technique. So we're going to finish this piece and then we're going to make a greeting card out of it. And that's what we're going to give away after the workshop. Um, okay, so this XL fluid mixed media paper is actually heavier than the 140-pound watercolor paper, which is really nice. Now, not all mixed media paper is specific to fluid um, types of techniques. This particular one from Canson, I saw it and went, "Ooh, I'll take that," because it was 154 pounds. So you do need to look at what is the weight of the paper, because every other mixed media paper that I've ever seen is 98 pounds. So 98 pounds is significantly less than your typical watercolor paper, which is 140 pounds. Okay. Um, so this one, good one. If it says fluid mixed media, great paper. And that's actually what I did when I started on here. This is going to be one of the stages of what it is that we're going to work with. But, I have to prepare ahead of time because, hey there, Handcraft Love. Ooh, nice and ooh, interesting. Thank you very much. Um, it takes For me in Florida, where it's quite humid, it takes overnight and in order for the modeling paste to dry, because modeling paste has a lot of texture to it and you're generally putting it on thick. So it's going to take overnight to dry. And that's why I went ahead and prepared this ahead of time so that you can see what the texture is going to look like from putting the modeling paste through the stencil like that. And I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, there's, besides putting the modeling paste through a stencil, you can also put texture into it. So you just lay down a bunch of modeling paste, and then you can use a tool like this that has little shapes in it. I love the effect of using a fork. If I can find my fork over here, I'll do that for you because I love the look of the fork. Um, but you can see here the little teeth, and that gives you those really fun swirls that a lot of people do. Actually, I have one of those right here that I did for a project. Let me see. Let's see if everything falls down when I pull it out. No. So these are very popular, right? Online is where you do these swirls like this. And it takes a lot of practice to do them. This was one of my early pieces, so my swirl is not exactly perfect, but it still got the job done, right? And so it was a tool like this that I used. Actually, I think it was this exact tool, which is a catalyst wedge, a silicone and plastic tool from Princeton, the Princeton Paint Company. And ooh, I love the colors on that. Oh, that was from the other piece. Yeah, thank you, Handcraft Love. And so you can see the texture that's built up here. This is in one of those little panels with the modeling paste. And then after it's dry, I went in and I put some paint on it with markers. Um, Okay, so that's another way is you can just lay it flat and then swipe through it. And another way is to press something into it. One of the things I like to press into modeling paste is this is a foamy stamp. So if you're again, out somewhere or you're on one of the whatnot shows and somebody has these foamy type um, stamps. This one was actually from my church. You can see 25 cents. Um, and so this is the type of thing that you can press into the modeling paste and then make a texture with it. This happens to be a honeycomb texture. You can see a honeycomb texture there. So you can, besides using stencils, you can also use stamps in on top of it in order to make an impression. It's just giving you an acrylic based texture medium in this modeling paste. That's what that is. Okay. And you can not only get texture paste in a tube like that, you can also get texture paint. If you need larger quantities, you can get it in a jar, a larger jar, or sometimes you can also get it in uh, a gallon. Yeah, if you do a lot and you're working on a large piece, yes, you can even get it in a gallon. Now, sometimes, thank you for the hearts, by the way, I appreciate that. Sometimes um, I have wanted to build up texture, and because it's so humid here in Florida, what I found is for me, because I do live in a humid climate, it's a lot better to um, put more layers of the modeling paste. Now, not if I'm going to make an impression in it, I need to have a thick layer to start with. But if I'm going to build up texture, say, just with a palette knife, and I have huge palette knives like this too when I work on big pieces. Um, it's like putting icing on a cake, you know? And so when I do that, I generally build up several layers. You can even cut back into the layers if you need to. Um, Actually, there's a trick to that. If you're an artist and you weren't aware, alcohol is the solvent for acrylic. Okay? Alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, I keep some right here, is the solvent for acrylic. So if you wanted to cut back into your modeling paste and you've built several layers, you can use a dropper. You know what I mean by that? This is a dropper. You can get a dropper full of just rubbing alcohol and then make your line with this, with the rubbing alcohol on top of the modeling paste, and then let it sit for a couple minutes so it can kind of soak in, and then use some sort of like what you would use to carve wood, a carving tool, and you could carve it right out. So that is the trick. Alcohol is the magic thing. Um, if you let your paint harden on your brushes, don't do it. I don't recommend it, but I will tell you that I just did that this week. And this brush, I left some gold paint in, and the tip of the brush got hard. But it's not hard anymore, and you know why? Because I put some rubbing alcohol and swirled it around, let it sit in the rubbing alcohol for a little while, and then came in and agitated it to get it all the way down inside there, and you could see it start to peel off. And then I put it in my regular brush soap and water, and it's back to being absolutely normal. And it was about a day and a half that I had forgotten about it, and there was dried acrylic paint on there. So don't worry, you can recover your brushes. Don't use your good brushes for acrylic, okay? When I say good brushes, I mean your watercolor brushes, like your natural hairs and stuff. It's better not to do that. You're better off using something. I like my favorites are the synthetics. So this is a golden taklon. There are white taklons, but the synthetics are what I find for myself work better. This someone might think of as a watercolor brush. It's a Princeton Velvet Touch, but do you see the taklon here? I use it for acrylics as well. And so they they will not melt in alcohol, all right? They won't melt in rubbing alcohol. So I'm not talking about the kind of industrial alcohol that you get at the hardware store. I mean, just the kind you get at the drugstore or the grocery store, okay? That'll take it right out of there. If you get it in your clothes or you get it on your rug, soak it in alcohol. Agitate it, soap and water. Woohoo! Yeah. So there's a trick. All right. So that's the supplies. Now, um, for this particular demonstration, I'm going to be using inks, which is what I used underneath here. You can see the swipes on the background here. That is an ink. So it's a very thin paint. Let's see, where do I have those? Here. So I happen to be using that today because I need it to dry quickly. And so I love permanent inks because they dry quickly. So you can use your Liquitex acrylic inks. They're all different companies make acrylic inks. And you want the acrylic ink because you want it to be permanent when it's dry. If you use a watercolor and you put this modeling paste on it, the modeling paste, the base of it is water. It is water based. So you risk lifting reactivating the watercolor because watercolor in general is not permanent. If you get it wet again, you can re-wet it. But if you use an ink like the acrylic inks, or these are inks for by Koh-i-Noor, yeah, Koh-i-Noor down here, and so these are permanent inks. Let me see. They call them mixed media brilliant ink. but they happen to be waterproof. So when they're dry, they're waterproof. But the great thing is they're very fluid and they dry in super quick. So for what we're doing today, that's what I needed. Something that's going to dry quickly. Oh, all right. Let me see. Oh, and one other thing that I'm going to show you. I was showing you earlier that we want to get, I want to show you some drippy effects. So you see the dripping that's going on here, dripping, dripping. Of course, you can do that with what I just showed you, those drippy inks. But one of my favorite things to use is a permanent spray. So a mixed media paint in a spray. And that's what these are right here by Marabou. And it says mixed media and it's a spray. So it's a permanent ink, but in a spray bottle instead of being in just a bottle like these are in little bottles. Now, if you have your favorite ink, let's say you're using the Liquitex ink or an F&W ink, you can just buy little spray bottles like this, put the ink in there, and spray away. So we're gonna have some fun with the sprays today. Actually, this is another brand by Ranger. Are y'all familiar with Ranger? So this is a Ranger version of a spray uh, paint, but I don't believe this is permanent. I would have to look at it a little more closely, but I don't believe that it's permanent. I think it's more of a you can reactivate it with water. So you do need to read all that fine print right there. You're going to need to read on your various sprays um, if it's permanent or if it doesn't say that it's permanent. Usually it will re-wet. And for the application of what we're doing, we don't want the ones that re-wet. We want the ones that stay permanent. Okay. Two last things you're going to need. I use a palette knife like this when I am spreading the modeling paste. So any palette knife, you can even use the plastic palette knives. Heck, if you don't have a palette knife, you can just use the knife, a cheap knife that you get. I pay 25 cents at my local church and I get, throwaway cutlery. So if you don't have a palette knife. Ooh, the other thing that I use is you probably all have around these little things that they send you in the mail, which are little plastic cards like this. This was from a hearing aid company for my parents who don't live here because they passed away. But you know. So this came in the mail, and this is great for doing for moving around the modeling paste also because it has a little bit of flexibility to it. So I keep these. I have a whole stack of these that I use for either applying gesso or applying modeling paste. All right. And then palette paper. So the last thing, this palette paper has, you can see the shininess of the surface of it. So this is what's called a throwaway palette. And you can purchase these. I do have them also on my website. Like I said, there's a link to them. And if you weren't here earlier, here's my website, www.dsart.com. And there's a page there that says supply links. As I said before, on Whatnot, I sell my art and I sell a limited art supplies, but for your paper and your palette paper and your palette knives and things, you can just go to my website and get the links for that. Or find someone on Whatnot that's selling supplies like that. Woohoo! Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to put some water in my butcher tray here because I'm going to need that water for when we get going. And I keep a gallon in my studio because my studio's in my house, but I don't have a sink in here. It was a former bedroom without a bathroom. So I just keep gallons of water in here. And I'm just putting a little bit of water in that. In my butcher tray so that as I'm using the stencils or I'm using the stamps, I can just throw them in the water. This is the watercolor paper, 140 pound that we're going to be working on, and also the palette paper. Fantastic. Okay. So let's do, now there's another kind of paper that I want to show you, which is black paper. Okay, so this is black mixed media paper. It's beautiful. And I like showing the initial ways that you can use this medium on the black. And the reason for that is that um, it shows up better because it's white. It shows up better on the black. So let me go ahead then, and on the, normally what I do is I squeeze it out on the palette paper here. So here's the modeling paste. This is the Pebeo brand, but all the companies have their own modeling paste. It's a very popular acrylic product. Hey, let me know if the sound of the air conditioner is too much, if it's like rattling in the background too much, and I will turn it back off. All right. Hey, hi, I'm Donna. Welcome in, welcome in. We're talking about modeling paste, acrylic modeling paste. I'm showing you a demonstration, and then we will have a sale of some of my finished artworks. And a giveaway. Okay, so on this black paper, remember the modeling paste that here that is white is going to end up staying white. And so it shows up better on the black. Let me take my palette knife, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I just put it on here. It's super creamy. I love that. There are different types of modeling paste. There's a heavy density modeling paste that's kind of it's like a putty, and so it's a little more gritty than this. Then there's something called lightweight modeling paste that is also a little more gritty. I like the regular modeling paste because I like the smoothness of it. So now I've got a nice bit of modeling paste on there, right? You can see it's kind of thick. And I'm going to show you how I run this texture tool through it, right? And then the shape we're going to get. There we go. So there's that very popular look that you can find out on social media a lot, right? Is these shapes like this. Now, there's still modeling paste on here, so I'm just going to take it off with my palette knife, and I can continue to use that, right? So let me just apply that here, and then I'll show you putting a stamp into it, going into it with a stamp. So this is just a inexpensive foamy stamp, and I can take that and impress it on the surface like that, and then pick it up. And now you see that beautiful texture that it made there? Oh yeah, that is so nice. So I'm working on a black background so that you can see it easily, but you'll see when we're working on a white background that it's difficult. It doesn't register well for the camera. Let's put it that way. I can see it in person. You can see it in person, but it doesn't register well for the camera. Now, in order to make sure that this doesn't get all gunky and stays relatively clean, I'm just going to dip that into my butcher tray that has the water in it right there. So that will help to keep it moist. If you're doing a session where you're stamping this multiple times, sometimes I don't put it in the water. I just dampen it off with a paper towel before I stamp it down again. Okay. And then let's do the famous way that I like to use modeling paste a lot, and that is to put it through the stencil. So here is, whoop, here's this really cute stencil right here. And now there are two ways that I work with the modeling paste when I have something like this, like a stencil. So I can either pick it up with the palette knife and put it in. I can tape it down first. So if you have some of that blue painter's tape, which I had here, but I don't know where it is right now. Ah, here it is. Oh, look at that. I'm actually better than I thought. So this is your typical painter's tape. And what I like about this particular stencil is you see how it has a wide border where this stencil does not. Let me show you. This stencil doesn't have a border, and this stencil has a wide border. So I like the wide border for if I'm going to tape something down because it makes it a lot easier to tape it down, right? Like that. And then that way it will stay where you put it, won't it? Okay, there we go. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm putting the tape on the stencil and not on the paper yet. I'm just going to attach it to the stencil and then I'm pulling on it to be sure it's nice and tight because we want this to be flush with the paper in order to get a good register with the modeling paste on there. So now I showed you before, I just pick up the modeling paste from a blob over here. The other way that I do it, and I tend to use a little bit less of it, is if I take my palette knife and I create a bead along the palette knife like this. So do you see that bead that's on the palette knife there? I can either do that or I can put the bead along here and then pull it down while it's on here. So let's take this and bring it through here. There we go. Oh, that's beautiful. So now let me do it the other way. So that was from a bead right on my palette knife. Now let's do it this way. I tend to like to put it where it's going to travel down toward me. It's easier to pull like this than to push, but you know, sometimes I do push it up too. It just depends on what angle I'm working on at the moment. But here we go. We'll just pull it across like that. Pull it across like that. Oh yeah. Okay. Now this is a relatively thin um, stencil. Sometimes you can purchase stencils that are a little bit thicker. And if you have a little bit thicker stencil, of course, you're going to get a thicker print out of it with the modeling paste. Okay. There we go. Now, let's do the reveal. Put the modeling paste there. And here we go. Oh, this is the most fun. Is the reveal, right? Oh yes. Gorgeous. Just like that. Now, of course, what am I going to do with this? I take this and I put it over into my butcher tray so that it doesn't harden on there. If I were going to do it in multiple locations, I go through the hard work of cleaning it each time, clean it, paper towel dry it, and then move it. Because I find otherwise you end up invariably getting some on the back and it messes up your design. If you don't care, and it's okay to have a piece of artwork that's perfectly imperfect, then that's fine. Don't stress about it. Now, I use a small silicone tool. So you see the end of that? I use a small silicone tool and I go in and I clean up areas that maybe it went over. So here it went over a little bit. It squished underneath a little bit. So I have a paper towel and I'm going to use this little silicone tool and go in there. Again, if you are doing this for fun and it's not that important that it be perfect, that you're okay with it being perfectly imperfect, then you don't need to do the cleanup. But let's say if I don't like this over here, now it's leaving a little bit of residue, but it is cleaning it up. When I work on white, a white background, you can't even see that. You can't see the little bit of residue that's left over. But this is the way that you can clean up your design if something happened and a little bit squished underneath the design there. Okay, and then as I said, I would take this and set it aside overnight. And this one is so thick right here where I did the stamp That might take 2 days in Florida to dry, but if you're in Arizona or someplace like that, then it may dry a lot faster. And I want to say hello to everybody who's joined in recently. I am happy to have you here for the Easter holiday, and I am showing you how to use modeling paste, which is an acrylic. Modeling paste is an acrylic medium. It has no color in it. It's just an acrylic base, but it is going to dry white. It is not going to dry clear. Now this is a piece that's already done and already dry on this same black paper. And after it dried, now realize that it will shrink just a little bit as it dries. And the reason for that is that it's a water-based medium, right? And so the water is evaporating out of it. Oh, wow, right? Yeah. So the water evaporates out of it. And when the water evaporates out of it, it shrinks a little bit. Now it doesn't crack. There's no cracking, although if you do it very thickly and you're in a dry location, it can sometimes crack. So that's another reason for doing multiple layers if you need to build up the thickness of it, because if it is very thick and then you live in a dry climate, it can crack. But I live in such a humid climate here in Florida that doesn't happen. But yeah, so you can see that this shrunk down. And then here I used a marker. So I use these acrylic markers like this. Oh, let's see. I think I even have that color here. Well, that's a version of the color. So a color similar to that. I use like a sky blue and this is a turquoise, but I went in with a marker, an acrylic marker, and then I went over top of the shapes carefully. And then that way I was able to highlight the shapes, and I put a little bit of gold on there. You can either do it with a brush, or I just find it's easier to do it with an acrylic marker, acrylic base marker. And then you can color it like that. Isn't that fun? Oh, so much fun. Okay, so let's work with something that is already, um, actually, I'm going to show you here making some color with it. So here we were working with it straight out of the tube and it was white, right? You can see the whiteness with the black background. Let's do some drippy drippies, which I have, as I said, I have these inks. So let us, what would be a good color? Good color, good color. We need something light, I think. So I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a little marble inside there. So that helps keep that nicely mixed up. And then maybe we'll use this right here. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, y'all. Look, 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 look. We can use this like sort of lime green or magenta. Does anyone have any preference to go with the yellow? I'm going to let you interact with me and tell me which color you want to see me put with the yellow. If anybody, oh, hi, Foxhound, magenta. Okay, I was leaning toward magenta too. If somebody didn't say anything, I was going to pick that. So good, good choice. There we go. All right, let me set these back aside. And you can do this one of two ways. Remember, this is just plain watercolor paper. There's nothing on it yet. And I can take this and shake it up. And then, of course, you can spray. Now, the spray is very concentrated. Actually, I haven't used these for a while. So why are you spraying only a little bit? Come on. Huh. It doesn't want to spray anymore. I don't know why. Okay, but not to fear. We're going to spray some water on it because you can see the watercolor paper is just soaking it in. So if I want to get like little drips and things, I often will just spray more of it on if I could, and then spray it with water. So let's do this one over here. Yes, the yellow. See, that's how it's supposed to spray, like that. Lots and lots of color. And then that way I can hit it with water and we can get some drips going. Come on, you can do it. Normally, what I'll do is put a paper towel down like this, and then I can do this. And that way, when it drips down onto the paper towel. Now, you don't want to be doing this on something that could stain because these are staining colors. I'm doing it over top of my piece of palette paper, right? So, oh yeah, yeah. Love that. And I do tend to turn it all different directions to get drips in different directions, but there you go. That's fun for just a beginning background. Now, normally, before I put modeling paste on, I want to dry that, right? So, one thing you can do is pick up excess with a paper towel. And then, of course, if you feel like you picked up too much, it's super easy to add a little bit more. But I find this helps. They usually stain pretty well. If you're using a good quality, professional grade paint, then it's going to deposit a lot of color on there, even if you take the wetness off. And then I just use a heat tool. Come on, don't fall. So this is your typical heat tool that it gets very hot here at the top. And normally people use this for embossing powders because it gets super hot at the tip. So I keep my paper a little ways away and then it's super easy to do this and have it dry. And it's quiet. It's not like the hair dryers tend to be a lot louder. I know a lot of people use a hair dryer, but my preference is to use these embossing tools. And I do have a link on my website under supply links um, to heat tools like this because you can put the heat right where you need it and they're very effective. There we go. See there? That's about just about dry. Wow. So fast. Love that. Okay. Is that gonna drop? I don't know. We'll see. So this is most of the way dry. There's still a tiny bit of dampness right there, but we're gonna be adding color to that. So um here is the plain modeling paste. Let's go ahead and give it a color. I'm gonna use this Naphthol red and it's a transparent color, but it doesn't matter if this is opaque. So if you're trying to get something transparent, you don't use modeling paste. I can use a gel medium. They sell something called different paint manufacturers have something called heavy gel medium. So you use the heavy gel medium if you want a transparent, glossy type of exactly what I'm doing. Okay. So that will work the same way as what I'm doing here with the modeling paste. The difference is the modeling paste is opaque and it looks thicker. But if you use heavy gel medium, it would not this tube, but one that says heavy gel, you'll be able to get a transparent, thick layer. So sometimes people like to kind of create some fun glossy effects by using the heavy gel medium. But in this case, we're just putting some of the Naphthol red, a pretty red. This is kind of a pinky red. And what's going to happen is that white is going to change the color a little bit to make it a little bit lighter, right? So then that made it a little more toward pink. And it's going to stay that pink color because it's not, this medium is going to dry white and not clear. You know what? I want it just a little bit redder. So I'm going to add just a little bit more red. More red, please. Okay, there we go. Nice. So you see how when you buy palette knives and on the links on my website, the palette knives I suggest in a pack from Artisan, they have a mixing palette knife as well as palette knives for detail work on your pieces. That's why I suggested the kit. But this is my favorite one for mixing the colors. Now, when I'm working on a very large painting, I have a large spatula. It looks like an icing spatula, but it has this little crook in it. You see how it goes out and then down and then over? That's what you want. You want that crook so that it makes it easier for you to um, do the mixing like this, and then it also makes it easier when you're actually applying it. Now, I'm going to apply it in some areas just like this, straight from the palette knife, because I like this sort of skippy look right here. And because the paper is dry, it'll give me some of that skippiness, right? And so I love doing that with a palette knife. And the usual palette knife that I apply that with is one more like this. So I have lots and lots of different palette knives here. See the different sizes there. And then this one, and then this one. I always wondered, why the heck would somebody need so many palette knives? Okay, now I know. After having been an artist for quite a while, I'm like, gee, I really would like this shape palette knife. And people who don't know just roll their eyes like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you need that. But we have our particular needs for certain reasons. Okay, so now let's use this one, which I think is so fun. I love this part of the design right here. So I'm only going to use that part of the design, and I'm going to put it down here. I'm actually going to do it in several places. Now, because I'm using this side, I'm going to start on this side of the paper and then move over this way if I want to do duplicates. If my design was on this side, I would start over here and then pull it in this direction. That way it doesn't go over top of itself, right? We want to be sure that we're away from that when we put it on. So here I'm going to lay it down. And can you see that okay? Let me move this over a little bit. Hold on. Well, there we are. I want to get that better in the shot there. Okay, for you. So we're just using this as a combination then of the paint and the modeling paste. Okay, I'll pick up a little bit more there. Now you can see here, I'm also not just getting it on there, but I'm getting it around there, which is why I put some down here because I knew I was going to be getting it all over the place because of the type of, oh, there we go. Look at that. How fun is that? Yes. Okay. And then we'll move it over here and maybe I'll do it at an angle like that. Fun, fun. This is so much fun. I could just do this all day. And some days I do. Right. Okay. Thank you, Julie Faye Fan Belzer, for the design. Like I said, I purchased it at Spellbinders, the stencil, but it is her design. I love her designs. There we go. You ready for the reveal? Ta-da! Nice. Isn't that fun? Repeating patterns. I love repeating patterns. Okay, let's put some right here. Why not? Let's do more right here. It's hard not to. It's like potato chips, right? It's hard to eat just one, or Doritos. Okay, but you definitely want this thicker. Some paints are called heavy body paints. You'll see on the label, they'll say heavy body paint. If it's a heavy body paint, it's for the most part it comes out in this same sort of consistency. So you could take heavy body paint right from the tube or the jar and use it exactly like I'm using it right now without having to mix any modeling paste in it. Okay, ready? There we go. Oh, that is so fun. It makes me laugh. All right, let's see if I turn this over, if I can put some up here. How am I gonna do this without getting everything everywhere? The reason is because I still have a little bit on my palette here, right? Okay, let me just do it like that. And let's see what we can get out. Oh, I'm getting paint on my hands. I can feel it already. Okay, I have a no paint left behind policy, so I try to use all of it. Okay, there, that's just two of them right there. All right, but how fun is that? And then that creates not only the patterning, but it creates texture, a raised texture that later when you put paint in there, that raised texture is going to suck in the paint and it'll be darker in the little valleys and lighter up on top. But one of my favorite things to do with this is to use gold over top of it or silver, depending on the color. If it's a dark blue, I like to put silver over it, and that really offsets the design. So I'm going to take this and you know what to do. There's the butcher tray, and I'm just putting that in the butcher tray. Um, Now, if I were going to use it again and again and again, at a certain point, excuse me, at a certain point, I would do this, rinse it, take it to my sink, gently scrub it off, bring it back in, make sure it's dry, and then go to it again. Okay. But oh, how fun is that? That is just so fun. Let me see if I can show you the texture. Yeah, you can kind of see the texture. Now, notice that. Oh, thank you for sharing. I do appreciate it over on Whatnot. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Now, one of the things you're going to notice as I'm turning it in the light is that it's shiny, right? Can you see the shininess there? The only reason that it's shiny is because it's wet. Okay. That's why it's shiny. It's not going to dry shiny, it's going to dry matte. So if you look at this piece here, where the white is right here, if you notice, there's no shininess, right? It's no longer shining in the light. And that's because it's going to dry with a very matte finish to it. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it shining afterwards. It's only because it's wet. Now, I'm looking over here and I have this really cool texture mat. Of course, it wasn't sold as a texture mat. It was at the hardware store and it was sold, you know what, as a silicone trivet, right? But look at the design. It's a honeycomb. So I'm always look. I love hardware stores. Hardware stores have so many art supplies in them that they don't know are art supplies, right? So I love to take this, and you see how it's flexible, which is cool because let's say you were putting something on a piece of wood that, or some other sculpture or something that had shape to it, and you were trying to create texture on the surface. I love having something like this because you can shape it to that piece and do something. Uh, Heck, you could use this as a texture tool on clay or in encaustic wax if you do those kind of things. Um, but here, this is great also for using with this. So let's see if this is still wet and if I can get an impression here. So let me do, what the heck? It's okay to double dip and do a double impression. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see? Yeah, you can kind of see that there's a honeycomb on top of that. Why not? Why not? Let's do it on the whole thing here. Let's just do it. If you think about it, gee, can I do that? Just do it because what are we doing? We're just playing in paint. This is not a commission. Somebody's paying me the big bucks for this. Is fun. Okay, there we go. Ugh. So now I've got two textures going on there, right? Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Let's see if I can take some of that color and print it back on here, like redeposit it somewhere else. Okay. Oh, yes. Look at that. Look at that. Now I've got the honeycomb. See, like I said, you're not going to look at household items the same ever again. All right. You know what I'm doing with that? I just put it over in my butcher tray. But it is silicone, so it would all come off anyway. Not a problem there. And I have all kinds of paint over here on my surface. So while it's still wet, I'm going to wipe it off. But if it were dry, what would I use to wipe it off? of my plastic tablecloth, I would simply take some alcohol, rubbing alcohol like what you get in the drugstore, and I would just spray it with the rubbing alcohol, leave it for a moment, and then wipe it up, and that will clean it up. Ooh, if you just learned that one trick today for your studio, that's a great tip, right? Using the alcohol to clean up your dried acrylics. Okay, wow. Now that was fun. That was a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do now, though, this piece is going to have to dry overnight before I work on it some more. Although, let's get a little crazy and let's, throw convention to the wind. Hold on a second. Yeah, this is another reason why I love working with palette knives. The cleanup is so dang easy. Now, if some of the paint dries on the palette knife, like here, there's some dried paint on the palette knife. This is how you get it off. You just take another palette knife and you scrape it off, just like that. So I'm constantly cleaning my palette knives because they always have dried paint on them. And this is the way that you take it off, is you just use another palette knife. All right. Ta-da! That was so helpful. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Gabrielle. You are quite welcome. Oh, all right. Then let's live dangerously. And let's look back at our tray here of different inks. I just have it off to the side here. And I'm gonna, okay. This is one of my favorite colors that I use a lot. Let me see if they have the color. Well, of course, because it's aquamarine. Okay, so let's see if this spray will work. Are you gonna work, spray? Come on. Let's see. And usually what I'll do is hold up my work a little bit. So let me hold it up, but let me make sure this is underneath it. So if anything dribbles down, it's on top of the palette paper. And okay, cross your fingers. Ah, it's working. Yay. Nice. Love it. To me, aquamarine, the aquas are very what I call high key colors. So there's just the spray on there, but now I'm going to activate it with water, right? And get some drippy drips going on. Okay. You see that? It's starting to drip down. Yes. Love it. Okay. Be kind to all the directions there, north, south, east, and west. Let's see here. Come on. You can do it. I like these concentrated, as I said, if it's like a professional grade mixed media concentrated paint, then you can do this. You can use some water with it like that, and the color will still stay nice and bold. Okay, now of course I need another paper towel. What happened to all the paper towels I had earlier? Because I want to put a paper towel right there. Okay. Oh, just gonna have to take another one off of here with one hand. Here we go. Because I didn't put one down to start, did I? Silly me. Okay. But that's how I get those really drippy marks all over my work. And I'm going to let that dry, of course. And then I will be coming back in and working over the top of the texture. Like that red texture would look beautiful with some gold over the top of it. And I might dry brush. I'll show you the dry brush technique here in a second. But I might, hey, Cozy Cottage, welcome in, welcome in. But I might dry brush onto the surface of that red some of the gold just to highlight that really cool texture, especially because of the, can you see right there? Yeah, like the honeycomb that's on top of it. Oh, so cool. Sometimes um, I do things with my work that really you're only going to see well in person. So that if my pieces are in a show and someone's standing in front of it live, they get the benefit of seeing those details that may not come through on on a photograph. And I often get comments from people after they've purchased my artwork. They say, "Oh my gosh, it's so much cooler in person." But that's because there are details in there like this that may not show up well on camera. And that's one of the ways you can do it. Okay, so let's take some of what I've already done. And please feel free to throw questions in as we go along. I am happy to answer them. And any of the products that I am using during the show, if they're not something that I offer on my Whatnot channel, then in the video, when it is saved to YouTube after the show, that's after the um, lesson and the auction, then um, excuse me, we the item links for these other paints will be in the description of the video on YouTube. Okay. And when you go to YouTube, it's not in the regular YouTube stream, it's in the little under the little tab that says live. That's where you're going to find it. Okay. So let's go ahead then. We're going to move these things out of the way. Come on, you can do it without knocking everything over. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed that everything makes it without getting mushed. Okay, see, I just put my hand in paint. Typical, typical. If I did make a mistake, I would go back in with my palette knife because I had to do this last night, or I would go in with this silicone tool with the small tip, and then I would do my what I call perfect the painting, which just means fixing mistakes. Okay, so now what we have here are these two, right? That already have the texture put on them. This is paper, but you could, as I say, this same process works on canvas. So, and you can, go as big as you want to go. Oh, you know what? Before we do this, I'm sorry, there's one more thing I want to show you. And I'm staring right now at the piece that reminded me of it. And that is how to create texture using your palette knives just with the modeling paste. So let me show you the example of that. I taught this class this past Thursday. So this Thursday, which is, well, it was a class talking about acrylic mediums and acrylic paints and special effects. So this was the big thing that I was showing was how to get dragon scales with the modeling paste. You see the incredible texture there? Now, if you missed this workshop, it is on my YouTube channel. And within the YouTube, not the description on YouTube, but on my website, which was thedeetsart.com, you can go and get the download of this design that I did and the color chart, the colors for it, and the instructions are there on the website. My website, you can try it out. You can try that project, but I'm going to show you right now because it uses modeling paste how to do those scales, the scales on the dragon before we finish these off and then do the giveaway. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to show you on black because, of course, it's a lot easier to see it on the black. But I'm going to, again, put some modeling paste out on my palette here. Remember, this is just palette paper that I have here. And this is where having all those different types of palette knives comes into play. So this is an Italian palette knife. I forget the name of the RCM. It looks like it says Italy. But look at the tip of that. You see how the tip is really narrow. So that's a good one for making dragon scales. Of course, again, it depends on how big your dragon is. My dragon fit on a 12 by 12, but if you're doing a huge dragon, you want to use a larger palette knife because what we're going to be doing is working with the end of the palette knife here, just the tip of the palette knife to get the shape for the dragon scales. Now, you could also use this technique for if you're doing a koi fish or any other kind of fish as well. You can make scales using the exact same technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm picking up some of the modeling paste on the tip. You see the tip of the bottom of the palette knife right there, right? And then let me turn this at an angle. It's a little easier for me. You're going, oh, here I am. See, I'm good at that. Let me go around the outside. So you're going to start, you press down you press down on that tip. Okay, can you see it right there? You press down like that. And when you do that, the uh, modeling paste squishes out the sides and gives you a little scale, a little dent. And then you are going to build one right next to the other. So I just keep picking up a little bit on the bottom there and squishing. So you're going to rock your wrists like this. And then you're going to start building down. So you're going to start at the top of where you're working and build it down toward you. Let's get a little bit more on there. So I'll do 3 rows and then I'll show you what it looks like. But this is going to build up these really cool scales. And then when it dries, then I like to put paint over it to get my dark colors. And then I go back over the top of it with a sparkle color like gold or silver. Okay, there's a couple of rows. So now, can you see the way that the scales are being built up there? And it's using the tip of the palette knife, not the whole thing, just the tip area of the palette knife. And there you go. So you're creating texture, you're creating a scale texture. And that can be used for fish, like I said, if you're doing a fish, or in this case, I was doing dragon scales. So you see there with the dragon scales, and I built it using the palette knife. And I started up here and worked my way down here. At the very bottom, I had to turn the palette knife as I was getting near the bottom in order to get it to fit down into this area here the right way. It's hard to work backwards, like to go back up into your artwork because you're building layers coming down toward you. And that's the easier way to do it. If I wanted to come back up here and try to fix something at the top of the area, oftentimes I have to fix a whole bunch of them if I'm just trying to fix one scale with that. Now here, what I wanted to show you is that first I put in a dark blue. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining over on Whatnot. And then I put in a lighter, I'm sorry, a green. Then I put in a lighter green, and then I used gold, and I just skipped over the top of it to pick up the texture. And that's how I created those incredible scales. And that was using the modeling paste as the base for it. So again, there are the scales. I just love that technique. It is so fun. I'm going to have to do some fish with that because I've only done the dragon with it, but I think it would be a lot of fun to do the fish with it. Now, let me show you if you have leftover. Oh, see, I'm dropping things again. I hate to waste paint, right? Nobody likes to waste paint. And so what I do to put it back inside the tube is I take the lid off and there's a small hole there. I tap it on the table a little bit like this and then see how the hole's opening up because it's coming down into the tube. And then I pick it up with my palette knife like this. On the bottom of my palette knife, there's the modeling paste, and I squeeze the tube a little bit, okay? And then I put it here, and then I'm gently letting go of the tube so that the air will suck it back in. Because as I said earlier, I have a no paint left behind policy. And so this way I'm able to put it back inside the tube. You might have to tamp it again like that in order to get the bit that you put in to go down. Yay! There you go. So now I've put that back inside there. Now you can get pastes like this in a jar, and it's actually better if you're able to buy it in a jar. That's usually the larger sizes, but I like the jar because it's so much easier to scrape it up and put it back inside the jar, right? Than it is to put it back inside a tube. But this tube is flexible enough that it's relatively easy to put it back in there. Okay, so let's go to the pieces that are done. Let's get rid of this. This is the beautiful thing about the throwaway palette. That piece is gone. Gone. Okay, there's actually a little bit left on there that I'll save. Okay, so let's work on the pieces that already have the dried paste on them. Now, if I use a thick paint, like for instance, this paint that I just mixed with the modeling paste a few minutes ago, um, it is a medium body. It's between a medium body and a hard body. And what that means is that if I take this paint and I scrape it across or brush it onto this texture here, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose the texture. It's going to be gone. Bye bye. Because the paint is thick. So what I like to do is I like to work with a thinner paint, like I was showing you earlier, right? In the sprays, and then let me see if I can. Oh, I'm telling you, making a mess over here. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to get out some Liquitex acrylic ink. Okay, so hang on just a second because I have a few things around me here. Since I had done the workshop on Thursday, I hadn't quite cleaned up from that workshop. And so I kind of have everything everywhere here, and the stuff's falling. Can you hear it? It's falling. Okay, okay. I'm just trying to keep things from falling on the floor that are covered in paint. Right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't know if anyone else is familiar, but Liquitex, which also makes paint just like this, right? Tube paint. They also make inks, and we're almost there. I promise. I promise we're almost there. Okay. So much is falling on the floor. It's hysterical. Okay. Oh, here we are. This is Liquitex acrylic ink. And you can tell when it's been sitting in your bin for a little while, you can tell which ones are opaque and which ones are transparent. Because right now, if I flip this over, you can see there's a ton of like chalkiness on the bottom here. This is an opaque paint. So what that means is when I mix it up like this, when I blend it, it's chalky. It's opaque. Can you see like the color is opaque? And this must be a turquoise. Oh, cerulean blue. Beautiful. And there's a little bit of the blue left on there in the bottom. So I would have to shake it a whole lot more to use it. But what that means is it's opaque. It's not transparent. So let's see this one. This one's semi-opaque. Oh, I think naphthol. Remember I said this was naphthol red or naphthol crimson or carmine right here? This is naphthol crimson. So it is I know it's transparent because the naphthols, if it says naphthol in the front of it, it's transparent. Oh, look, I have two naphthol crimsons. Maybe I should give one away. Y'all want one of these? I have two. What happens is I go to shows and then people give me things at the shows and then I end up with more than one. So I'm going to give one away at the end of the show. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to give that one away. Okay. It's not brand new, but it's, for all practical purposes, it is. Oh, but these are phenomenal. It says here professional acrylic ink. Woo woo! Phenomenal. They are just great. Vivid red orange. That one is not oh. Okay. This one says quinacridone magenta. I did a color class before where I explained about different colors and how to color mix and all that. Just know that if it says quinacridone, this really crazy word in the front of it, quinacridone, everybody calls it quin. So this would be quin magenta. That if it's a quinacridone, it's transparent. If it's naphthol, it's transparent. If it's phthalo, it's transparent. Okay. So once you start working with the paints, you get to know which ones. So this one, so it says phthalocyanine blue. Okay, that's what it says right there. Phthalocyanine blue. But everybody just calls it phthalo blue. Okay. And that is transparent because if it's a phthalo, it's transparent. Oh, cool. This one says burnt sienna, but in the beginning it says transparent burnt sienna. And you know why they put the word transparent right in the name? Because most burnt siennas are opaque, but this happens to be a transparent version of it. Woohoo! So loving that. Love, love, love. Okay, and of course this is white, which you can mix with any of those other colors to get a lighter version of the colors. So I always have to have white of whatever I'm working with. Okay, let's set these aside and work with the ones that I pulled out. Ah, there we go. Unless there's a particular color you want to see, you just tell me, I'll see if I have it, okay? And I'll pull it out and I'll show it to you. Why not? We're sharing. Okay, first of all, so I don't get foot marks on these. These fell on the floor. And they're going to end up with shoe marks on the top. Oh, there are those paper towels that I said. Hold on a second. There we go. See, stuff like this is what I cut out of the final version. There. There's the paper towels where I was like, where the heck did they go? Okay, so let's look at these inks. Oh, I just love working with the inks. It is just a professional version, meaning it's very highly pigmented acrylic. And we're going to shake that up. This is the quinacridone magenta. So let me just show you what they look like. It's great because they're highly pigmented fluid. And where if I took a paint like this and I added a lot of water, it's going to be, and to make it more transparent and flowy, you lose the pigmentation. But when you get an ink, it keeps the pigmentation. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Woo! Okay, that's too much for what I'm working on here. um, here is that cerulean blue. Wow, right? Yeah, I know. It's like amazing. But this cerulean blue is opaque. So let me pull this down a little bit. Yeah, you can see the opaqueness right there. I would call it semi-opaque, meaning you can kind of see through it a little bit. Okay. Nothing's jumping out at me yet of something that I want to put on top of here. Let's see. Now this is the phthalo blue. So guaranteed it is transparent. Okay, we're getting closer. I like that a lot. This is a great color for glazing too. So glazing meaning that you put it on a brush with some water, and when you brush it over, it's transparent and it'll give you a beautiful, another layer to really deepen your colors. Okay, so those were the ones we used so far. This is the Naphthol Crimson. Ugh. Let's see. Okay, so the Naphthol is going to be transparent. See that blue on there? Let me see if you can see that. Wow, wow. Now phthalo blue is a mixing color, so a lot of people mix using phthalo blue. All right, here is the Naphthol. Gorgeous. The interesting thing is the Naphthol is like a redder version. This is the magenta, and there the Naphthol is like tending a little bit more toward red. I really like the Naphthol together with this because you can see I have kind of a coppery brown and blue in there in the background. So this plays more nicely with that background than this does. You see how I like to put out my colors and then sort of audition and see, ooh, okay, what's actually going to work that I'm going to like in terms of putting the colors together. Okay, this one I'm excited about, which was the transparent burnt sienna. Let's see what that does, because I think this is going to be one of the colors that I use. Well, let's just put it right here. Okay. Oh my gosh. That is beautiful. Can you see that? It is gorgeous. If I were putting it on paper, it wouldn't bead up like that, but because I have it on palette paper, that's why it's beading up. But it's okay. I'm just doing it swatching it to get a feel for it. for the colors. And then there was one more. Nope, that's the giveaway. Okay, giveaway gets over here. So that's all the colors that I pulled out. I really, really, really like this transparent burnt sienna. But okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend the burnt sienna together with the quinacridone, no, with the naphthol crimson, these two. I'm going to combine them together. So let's put some on here, the palette paper, put a few more drops on there. I don't need a lot. And then this. Now, it's not on the table right now because of the the demo I did on Thursday. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now you're talking. A little more brown in there. I don't know. A little more brown. Look at that. Beautiful. Yeah. It's going to need just a little bit more brown. I don't want it to be brown brown because the background here has brown brown. I want something that complements it without being exactly the same. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. That's a nice. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pick that up with a stiff brush. Well, not so much a stiff brush. Let's see. This is a medium stiffness brush. Can you see that? So it's not, if I had a natural hair brush, which would be like a watercolor type brush, then it would not have the spring in it that this one does. This is the Princeton Velvet Touch. Okay, I love these, and they're great for watercolors and acrylics. They'll go back and forth between the two. So I'm going to pick up some of this paint that I just mixed right here, and let's, oh, moment of truth, right? I'm just going to go over this. And what's really cool is that the design is just showing up. Now I am going to highlight the design with some gold paint, but because this is acrylic ink, it dries super fast, y'all. That's what I love about the inks. Okay, good. So I'm just covering up the white. But because it was white, isn't that cool? The way it's just showing through. Love that. Okay, I see little bitty bits of white. All right. Oh, that's fun. That is fun. Okay. And that will dry super quickly. All right. So for this one, which is the honeycomb, I'm going to do something a little different. Let us create, oh, now that's one thing. The ink imbues the, it gets down in there in the brush. It's kind of hard to get out of the brush. Okay, there we go. That got most of it out. For the honeycomb, I want to go more on honey color, like this brown honey. So let's try this. But I want it to be even less color. So I'm going to add water. And I had shown you earlier these droppers. So that's what I use. Notice I have two waters here. So I try to keep one water as clean as possible, and the other water that I use just to initially clean my brush. So theoretically, if I got most of the color out with this one, then I could do my final rinse in that one. And then my brush is good to go for my next color. If I want water, I usually keep my dropper in the second one that's much more clean. And so I can put a few drops of water on here, and that helps to make it even more wishy-washy. And then it almost acts like a watercolor or a, as I was saying earlier, it'll act like a glaze. Oh yeah, this is coming out exactly how I want it. And I'm going to show you in just a second how the color deposits in those little ridges of the honeycomb. Okay, let me get a little bit more on there. I may need a little bit more. Here we go. Thank you for stopping in. And I will have the giveaway and a art auction after we're done with the lesson, which will just be in a few minutes. So thanks for spending your Easter evening with me. All right. So what's happening, if you look here, you can see how the color slips down in between those little ridges and gets darker down inside there, right? I love that. I love the way it does that. So this is a more subtle texture where this is more, you can see that much more. Okay, actually, I'm going to warm this up with a little bit of that leftover brown there. Nice. All right. Fantastic. I love that. Love, love, love the way it is raised up off of the surface. And you see how flexible it is, how it's not just cracking and breaking. If it were too thick, it might crack. But when you have the thinner layers through a stencil like this, you can see how it still bends, which means you can feel confident putting it on a canvas, because you know how canvas moves, that it's not going to flake off. Okay. And that's important when you're using professional grade, that it won't flake off. All right, now to do the dry brush of the gold. Is that quite dry yet? Let's dry that real quick, like, because we're going to put some gold over top of it. And there's my gold right there. And let's do this. I'm going to put out a little bit of this is the Pebeo gold that I put, actually, this is the exact same gold that I put on the scales right here. And it's actually the same way that I put it on as what I'm going to show you right now. So I put a little bit of gold right there on the palette. And then I use this brush, which is a stiff, it's a stiff brush. Now, let me see if I have another stiff brush here that I might be able to use as well. So you can see that you don't just have to use that one. The idea is you want it to be relatively stiff. So here's another stiff hog hair brush. The idea is you want the stiffness because we're going to paint it on. We're going to paint this gold on. Notice I'm just taking a little bit. Okay, I'm going to show you up close. I'm just taking a little bit on one side, flat. I'm not taking a glob of it. I just want a little bit of it, because we're going to use a technique called dry brushing. So that means you don't want it overly wet and you don't want too much paint on there. You want a little bit of paint on there, and then when you run it over the surface where there's texture, it's going to grab the texture. That's a dry brush technique. Hey there, Mustang Patty. Welcome in. So and what's cool is that this is acrylic paint. So it's going to dry and have the same properties as all your other regular acrylics. Okay, let's just do this. What I'm doing here actually is creating a background. And yes, this is going to be the card that somebody wins with the giveaway, but I'm actually going to finish it off camera. I'm going to put some other collage on it to finish it. So I'm not brushing like this. I'm brushing flat like this and pulling it over the surface like that. Oh, how fun. Okay, look at that. You see the glow? Woo! That is so amazing. All right, so that is it for the workshop.